Hi everyone, I'm Samarth and this is my fifth STEM project, and today I'll be talking about GMOs or genetically modified organisms. In this presentation, I'll cover six topics. These are the topics I'm going to be covering. What are GMOs? How GMOs began? Types of GMOs, benefits of GMOs, GMOs impact on our environment, and are GMOs safe to consume? So let's begin. Um, First of all, what are GMOs? GMOs are genetically modified organism. Uh, a GMO is any organism whose genetic material has been altered using genetic engineering techniques. There are a wide variety of organisms that have been genetically modified, from animals to plants and microorganisms. With GMO, genes have been transferred within the same species, across species, and even across kingdoms. New genes can be introduced or can be enhanced with GMO techniques. This means there are artificial changes done to the DNA of an organism in the lab. You might wonder how GMOs began. So here's how GMOs began. In 1973, an enormous breakthrough in GMO technology happened when Herbert Boyer and Stanley Cohen worked together to engineer the first successful genetically engineered organism. These two scientists developed a method to very specifically cut out a gene from one organism and paste it into another. Using this method, they transferred a gene that encodes antibiotic resistance from one strain of bacteria into another. Um, the first artificial genetic modification accomplished using this technique was transgenesis. Transgenesis is the process of transferring gene from one organism to another, which was first accomplished by Herbert Boyer and Stanley Cohen. The first genetically modified crop was tobacco in 1983. So this is an image of GMOs. These are crops that are used in GMOs. So high-risk crops mean that these crops are in large-scale commercial production and are at a high risk of being a GMO. These are monitored crops. These are monitored crops because the non-GMO project is monitoring these crops because it's highly contaminated and they will be soon commercialized. And our next topic is types of GMOs. There are 5 types of GMOs. The first one is Bt crops. Bt stands for Bacillus thuringiensis. Bt crops are plants genetically engineered to contain the crystal toxins of the bacterium. Currently, the most common Bt crops are corn and cotton. Bt crops are also resistant to certain insect pests. So this means that there are pesticides usage in this type of GMOs. And our next type of GMO is herbicide-resistant crops. These crops are herbicide resistant, as the name suggests, and have been commercially grown since 1995, mostly in North and South America. These crops are designed to tolerate specific herbicides, which kill the surrounding flora and leave the cultivated crop intact. Cultivating herbicide-resistant crops promotes and significantly increases herbicide usage, therefore forcing farmers to use more chemicals and other pesticides in the cultivation of these kind of crops. Our third type of GMOs are genome editing or gene editing. Gene editing is when a scientist makes a tiny control change in the DNA of a living organism. GMO is the result of tweaking the DNA of a living organism. Our next topic is synthetic biology. Synthetic biology is often called synbio. It is an emerging application of genetic modification that involves the practice of changing an organism, such as yeast or algae, so that it makes a substance uh, which is not able to make naturally. The process requires artificially created DNA that mimics naturally occurring DNA in other organisms. A number of substances produced by SynBio are currently being used in consumer products, including food, cosmetics, fragrances, pharmaceutical products, detergents, and soaps. Advocates for GNA, I mean, advocates for SynBio claim that its products are just like the naturally occurring products. However, this is scientifically questionable because the SynBio product is not exactly the same as the product derived from natural sources, because the product of SynBio are produced with genetic engineering that creates DNA not found in nature. Our fifth and final type of GMO is gene silencing. Gene silencing is to create a GM crop plant. Genesis isolate a gene, usually another type of plants or bacterium that produces a desirable trait. Then they introduce the gene into the DNA of plant they wish to modify. Our next topic is the benefits of GMOs. With GMOs, we get more nutritious food, tasty food than original because it is modified to suit the customer's needs. We also get disease and drought resistant plants that require fewer environmental resources. GMOs are made with less pesticides and provides us with increased supply of food with reduced cost and longer shelf life. GMOs produce food with more desirable traits, such as potatoes that produce less of a cancer-causing substance when fired. So there are also some issues with GMOs, which I'll be discussing as well in the GMOs impact on our environment section. Um, the early warnings of environmentalists about the negative impacts of genetically modified plants are being proven correct. The C-band is observing the following serious problems. By the way, C-band stands for Canadian Biotechnology Action Network. These are the five issues they're focusing on: increased herbicide usage, super weeds, super pests, contamination, and biodiversity loss. What is increased herbicide usage? Increased herbicide usage is the widespread cultivation of GM herbicide-tolerant crops, which has pushed the usage of herbicides. Uh, for instance, herbicide sales in Canada rose by 199% between 1994 and 2016. So our next issue is super weeds. Superweeds is the use of specific herbicide with GM herbicide-tolerant crops, which has led to the evolution and spread of superweeds, or weeds that can no longer be killed by those herbicides. Our third issue is super pests. Some insects have developed resistance to the toxins in GMO insect-resistant crops. Um, the first case in Canada was reported in May 2019. So these insects are resistant to the toxins used in GMO modification. Our next issue is contamination. Contamination from GM plants has a serious ecological, economic, and social impacts. Gene flow from GM crops poses a threat to wild and weedy crop relatives, non-GMO crops and foods, and organic farming. Our last issue is biodiversity loss. Uh, Biodiversity loss is caused because the use of some GMO products can have negative impacts on non-target organisms and on soil and water ecosystems. For example, the expansion of GMO corn and soy, which are twinned with herbicides, has destroyed much of the habitat of the monarch butterfly in North America. Are GMOs safe to consume? GMOs are very safe to consume and it will leave your body unharmed. Although there are a few crops that are harmful, it is assessed by the FDA if it is safe. Uh, if it's safe, then it's exported and transported across the world. And if a crop is harmful, then it is disposed in an appropriate method. Uh, so as of now, all reliable evidence produced to date shows that currently available GMO food is at least as safe to eat as non-GM food. And also, before any food produced using GM technology is permitted onto the market, a variety of tests have to be completed. The results from these tests, including results from animal feeding trials, are considered by the authorities responsible for determining the safety of each new GM product. And this is my topic for today. Um, Briefly, I talked about what are GMOs, uh, types of GMOs, are GMOs safe to consume, and benefits of GMOs, and its an impact on our environment. Thanks for watching, and here are my sources. Thank you.